as I always say, there is a housing market, and lots of people think one rental at a time is all things housing, which is great. But if you really pay close attention to what I talk about, there's two markets. There's a housing market, right? Buy box, daily discipline, all that. But you also have to watch the lending market. Just because rates are going down doesn't mean lending is easy. Just because rates are high doesn't mean lending is hard. There's a lot of stuff going on. And right now, the lending market is changing. I think there's going to be huge shakeups in the lending market, both with who's providing lending and how they are doing it. And to have this conversation, I have the one and only Stephen Dow from Velocity. How you doing, sir?
I'm fantastic. And yourself? Happy New Year, sir.
Oh, happy New Year. It's been a while since we spoke. You took a trip to Europe, as I recall. How was that?
Oh, Portugal. Fantastic place. Highly recommend going. Food was fantastic. Clean air. People were nice. Still fairly cheap to travel there.
Nice.
Except, obviously the more touristy places, they're going to have a little bit higher prices. But other than that, I would highly recommend it. It was, I think I just kind of lucked out. Weather permitted a little bit more, you know, um, walking through some of the streets and whatnot. It wasn't going to be as torrential rain as I thought it was going to be at the beginning of the trip. So it turned out pretty fun. A lot of walking though, man. Let me tell you, Lisbon is like a European San Francisco. It was just steep hills and steps and just walking for days. But it was good exercise because I'm usually pretty sedentary as far as just working at my desk all the time. So what you
Yeah.
see here on the screen usually doesn't change much
You just
Monday
change
through
your hat.
Saturday. Pretty much. I literally have this, I probably shouldn't have done it. I spent a lot of money on this leather clad, like, reclining
Not that you just never
electric
use.
office. Yeah, no, I do now, but then
Oh, okay,
like
good.
I literally just slept in it right before we started recording because I'm still catching up on the whole like, time difference with
Yeah.
the sleep. So I
Yeah.
woke up this morning at 1:30, couldn't go back to sleep.
Oh
So I
no.
like hit a wall right before we were recording. I'm like, I gotta take a quick nap. So that chair came in perfectly handy. But now I don't want to, create a habit where I'm literally living in my office, night and day,
Yeah, yeah.
sleeping here. So,
Well,
but
do
in
me
any
a favor.
case,
Do that
yes, sir.
marketing spiel so we don't get in trouble.
You
I almost
remember.
forgot. I did.
It's been a while. Again, although I work very happily for Velocity Mortgage Capital, all the ideas and topics discussed on this channel are that of my own. So let's get it going. One last thing I wanted to say. Um, Thinking big for 2023.
Look at that
Got to
hat.
think
That's
big. Got to think
think
big.
big.
So,
Think
yes,
big.
sir. Think
There you
big.
go. There you
Any
go.
case, let's get it going.
Yeah, so let's talk about the mortgage market because again, the lending market, all of that, there's so much going on. I think the first thing we have to talk about is one of the biggest players, and as of 2019, the biggest players leaving, for all intents and purposes, the mortgage market, and that is Wells Fargo.
Right.
I want to talk about what, if anything, you think that means, and do you think there'll be another big player like Bank of America or U.S. Bank or someone else that goes, you know what, I can't make any money in this business. There's too much risk. I'm out. So what do you think of
Right.
Wells Fargo? You think anybody else might be coming?
I would imagine there's going to be probably maybe one other one, just because again, as I think you talked about before with maybe Matt the Mortgage Guy or even Anna Kelly, that's just not where Wells Fargo wants to be putting their money at right now.
Right.
As far as for bang for their buck, I think they're going to reallocate their people to do something else, lower risk, lower yield, obviously, but markets is still volatile. I mean, we're going to have, especially on the APEP side, with the bond market going crazy today. Didn't know what was the CPI reading today? Was it?
So headline inflation was negative zero point
Oh,
0.1 month on
oh,
month and 6.5 year on year. So yeah, you're going to hear more people talk about recession, deflation, the world is ending. Yeah, that talk track is going to pick up steam.
well, I guess again, just do the work because when
Yeah.
there's fear in the market, there's great opportunity as well.
Amen.
So, but no, definitely, uh, you know, financing is tightening, so you definitely want to at least know who the real players are still in the market because you don't
Exactly.
want to be, left holding the bag when you're in contract and then they pull the loan on you last second or even the
Yeah,
program. So just make sure you have always a plan B in place.
I agree.
Because yeah, in this market it's going to get a little rocky for a little bit. But other than that, as far as other players, not sure. There's obviously going to be somewhat of a cutback in financing. Things are just going to get a little tighter, harder to get.
I think that's
Less
the key.
players.
I think the big players, again, people, they misunderstand, right? They see rates going down. They see the 10-year bond going to 3.45 or whatever it is today. The 10-year mortgage rates, dude, there's a chance mortgage rates go sub 6 this month. There's a chance.
Right.
And people think that's a sign that lending's easy. That's not the case. Lending can get significantly harder if rates
Right.
go down.
Right.
Talk about that.
Well, again, I think it's just depends on even though rates may take a dip, sometimes guidelines get a little bit tighter too, only because they lenders are going to be looking at different factors as far as approval, just because how the market changes and certain risks depending upon what economic environment we're in. Lenders are going to kind of have a little bit better foresight in some areas where if we're heading into somewhat of a recession, decrease in jobs, things of that nature. I don't think they're going to be as, free flowing with the money. So things are just going to get a little bit tighter. You'll still have players there because there's still going to be loans to be made. But with all the combination of what you've been talking about for the last several months, year or so, it's just demand destruction. Inventory is low, so prices they're still a little sticky. I'm seeing some of it. They haven't really dropped. The floor hasn't dropped, in a lot of different places like people were thinking they were going to be. But I just it's just an interesting time walking into this year. I took it 2 weeks off to kind of enjoy the my vacation, but I was also trying to clear my mind to see what the moving forward in this year, how am I going to approach it, because it's a different environment. So the only thing we can really stick upon is pertaining to my product is again, the 50-40-10, or at least the 90% CLTV. So you can kind of wheel and deal with certain sellers that are willing to carry 30-year money, 30-year fixed, 30-year amortized. Also blanket loans has been within the last week since I got back very popular as far as like topics. People have been reaching out like, hey, do you guys do this? So ransom numbers, I think they're just going to start to make offers and see where that goes. But been seeing an uptick in interest in blanket or portfolio loans. Outside of that, high-end luxury, which is another topic you've been talking about with some of your people. We are very strong in that market or in that space because I can go up to 5 million on 1 to 4 unit non-owner residential, and we're very forgiving with the DSCR. So when all else fails, you fall out conventional, you fall out of bank statement DSCR programs. That's when you come see Uncle Steve. That's where that's usually how it works. But I think those are the three major things coming. That I took away from this last week of videos that I've been reviewing since I got back from Portugal. But I think those are the three main things that would be most relevant and impactful, maybe to your audience at this point, or at least this week.
Yeah, I think there's another area that you could play into, because not only did Wells Fargo bounce, but Freddie Mac introduced a change that I think Fannie Mae is going to bring on next, and basically makes Burr tough.
Right.
And that goes back to the seasoning period, right? That used to be 6 months at the near the end of February. It's going to 12. Fannie Mae will absolutely copy that. And you just have to have more options. And again, if you're doing deals in this environment, you've done the work and you're getting in with hard or private money, but you need to exit, you got to have plan Bs. And sometimes plan B is a non-QM lender. So talk about that.
Agreed. As far as our ARV or our fix and flip or for distressed properties for fix and hold, we could recognize the new higher ARV or current market value as soon as you're done with the rehab, even though you've owned it less than 12 months as far as seasoning. So from that standpoint, it's much easier to tap into your equity right away instead of having to wait 6 and now 12 months. So our normal seasoning is 12 months to use the new higher appraised value after purchase. But if you've done rehab and you kept a good paper trail, say before and after pictures, paid invoices for lights contractors and things of that nature, then and if there's enough sales comps to recognize the current market value, then we can then allow you to use that higher value. Yeah. So you're able to flip the money a lot quicker. Christy M, specifically, one of your students, she left a nice review. Exact same situation. Her husband bought a property all cash. Husband did all the work, about a month and a half. We then put the application in, and at that time things were moving pretty quickly. And I think we were done in less than two weeks or so, a little over 2 weeks. So by month 2, they already tapped into their equity using the new higher appraised
they're ready
value.
to go again.
They're ready to go again. She was just like mind blown. So Again, I think that does definitely help given the circumstances because you don't want to be stuck sitting in a in a project for a year when rates are
Yeah.
just going crazy or whatever the case is of the market. So our product does give a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things. And again, I've used Velocity. You helped me with 2 loans. I think there's a couple of
Right.
things. So let's just define again, because a lot of people see this for the first time. One of the areas you're very strong in is blanket loans. So define what a blanket
Yes.
loan is, and
Sure.
especially why it helps in cheap areas, because people may not realize this. Banks don't like to do loans at 50K or below. It's just not what they do. It's not profitable.
Right. Well, for us, in some cases we do recognize that there is a need for that type of service. So we do provide blanket or portfolio loans. So typically, what 2 or more properties that are going to be included into one transaction would be considered a portfolio or blanket loan. So for us, the I guess guidelines would be that the minimum value for each property, including the blanket, only needs to be at least 50,000 or more.
Hmm.
Other than that, just need to be in the same state, have to be 1 to 4 unit non-owner residential, no commercial. And if it's, obviously a purchase all from the same seller. And that's pretty much it. Outside of that, everything else kind of fits the same guidelines. You can also apply the 50-40-10 with a blanket loan as well. So I had
Oh, nice.
last year, I did a couple of quotes based upon those kind of, hacks that we put together on that deal. So there's a lot of different little buttons to push and levers to pull to really structure a deal that really can make sense given the circumstances. So yeah.
Yeah, and again, this is where they need to reach out to you and say, "Can you help me? Can you help me?" So we'll do this again at the end. But what is your email? How should they reach out?
Please, again, that's going to be SDAO at velocitymortgage.com. In the subject line, just put the acronym ORAAT, which stands for one rental at a time, just so it'll pass the firewall. Body of the email, maybe brief description what you're looking for, mid FICO score would be helpful, seeding state where you're looking to finance in, and the best phone number to reach back in typically 24, 48 hours. I'll be in touch or via email. Otherwise, that's typically the best way to reach me.
And then finally, let's talk about this 90% CLTV, because again, I don't think a lot of people know what that is. We've obviously hacked together with something we call the 50-40-10, but it's all anchored on the fact that Velocity will allow an investor to do a 90% loan, which is nuts. We always hear about 75% LTV, 70% LTV. Velocity Mortgage will allow you to do a 90% CLTV. Define what CLTV is and how it looks.
You got it. So CLTV, the acronym stands for combined loan to value. So that's where, although we would max out at a max LTV of 75% on the first mortgage, the 90% represents the fact that you would be allowed to find a second loan or second trust deed to go behind our first that would add up to a combined loan to value of 90%. So if I'm doing 75% on the first, if the seller has enough equity, or if you can find a private second to carry and go behind mine at a 15% a second, that then allows you to just come in with the last 10%. So that's very useful right now, especially for looking at properties to see how you can structure it so they can cash flow with the least amount down. So that's what the CLTV would allow. Same thing for some of these higher luxury properties, to where if we can max out at 75% of whatever appraised value is accepted, but if there's the difference to between that and what the seller's willing to wants to sell it for, they're just going to have to carry that as a second. But that's at least going to give them some options to getting into contract and making the bleeding stop, so they're no longer on market.
Yeah, again, I'm on record. I'm paying agents to go look for these opportunities, buying
I know you told me.
Park Place and Boardwalk in Fresno, California. Obviously, my number
Right.
one goal is to try to get 90%
100%.
seller financing.
Yep.
However, I know that that's unlikely. Some of the sellers are going to want more, and the answer is,
Right.
the answer is the 90% CLTV, whether it's 50-40-10 or 80-10-10 or
Right.
60-30, 60-20-10.
Right.
It's all anchored on what Velocity does. And again, the ability to do 90% or 10% down deals today is unheard of. Investors, you can get it with Velocity Mortgage. I've done it. So Stephen, one more time, how can they find you?
Yes. Again, SDAO at velocitymortgage.com. And then in the body, the subject line, please put ORAAT for one rental at a time. Body of the email, brief description, what you're looking for, seeding state that you want financing in, your mid FICO score, and best phone number to reach you at. And again, typically 24, 48 hours, I'll be in touch.
Very cool, man. Welcome back, and glad you enjoyed the vacation. Time to help some one rental at a time fans and students. Take care. Thanks, Stephen.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate you, brother.